First of all, I want to thank you and welcome the new subscribers. A video I put out a couple of days ago got me over 100,000 views, which is only the second time that's happened. But more importantly, it got me over 800 new subscribers. People clearly thought that what I'd said was interesting enough to follow me, and as a result, I've seen a couple of good things happen. Some older videos are getting more views, and some interesting comments are coming in. Keep them coming in, please. I read all the comments and I do respond to many of them. Some of those comments go on to become new topics for later videos, and that's great. So thank you. And wherever you are, welcome to another of my takes on China. What I really wanted to do today was to add a few thoughts to the Great Soybean Con video, because based on the comments that I got, and there are over 1,000 of them so far, I've learned a lot. It seems that the scam might be even deeper than I first thought. One important thing I've learned is that soybeans, or more accurately, China not buying soybeans, is not a threat to the USA's economy, nor are they a threat to the US national security or even farmers' livelihoods. The fact that farmers were saying China hasn't bought a bushel yet is neither here nor there, because the China market for soybeans has already declined and other markets are opening up. Biofuels industry, Mexico, the European Union and even Taiwan have greatly increased their purchases. So in fact, it's not true that China isn't buying, because Taiwan took 2% of their exports. And according to the American Soybean Association, linked, at its peak, exports to China were only 31% of total production. That's now reduced to less than 25%. Many people were telling me in the comments that China had bought 60% of production in the past. They're wrong or misinformed. China has never bought more than 31% and rarely buys more than 25%. It's been up to 60% of exports in a given year, and this is one way propaganda is misinforming us. Check the wording. If they leave off the word exports, they're trying to con us into thinking that China usually buys half the crop. China never has, and they never will. Another misinformation I learned is that because soybeans are actually needed to provide nitrogen to the soil in between crops of corn, most farmers who farm corn rotate the crop because of the soybean residual. It breaks up and replaces nitrogen that corn takes out. I wasn't aware of this before, but those people telling us they're going broke because China isn't buying soybeans are not. They're already planning on planting their next crop of corn. And I verified this by checking with the AgWeb Farm Journal. I've linked that too. I'm not really sure who they're trying to fool with this story, probably the government departments that provide the subsidies and handouts. But here's a very interesting fact that I also found out as a result of making this video. It's not major corporations who are farming soybeans. It's billionaires who set up corporations for farming. People criticize me for saying that farmers get paid $43,000 a year, but that's a fact. When I was criticized, I double-checked, and farmers who are employed to farm do indeed get paid $43,000 a year on average, with an hourly rate of $23. I linked it the other day, but it's linked again here. Check who owns the farm. Besant himself is a billionaire. He admitted on TV the other day that he's also a soybean farmer. I'm willing to bet he's never set one of his loafered feet into a field, but he owns plenty of them. Bill Gates is one of the largest, the Resnick family. And it goes on, billionaire after billionaire owning land for farming. Not because it's a lucrative business. Every farmer you've ever seen on TV or read about in an article will tell you how hard it is to make a living farming. What they do is they make a living on farm subsidies and long-term investments. They get water rights. They can sell them. They get space for wind or solar farms. If the land isn't good land, then it will still be there for the future generation of power. There are many reasons, but we're being conned into thinking farmers are all poor. That may be true of the people working the land, but the farm owners are most certainly not. A good friend of mine pointed out that the video also brought context and magnitude to the farmers' complaints. For a technologically advanced nation such as the US claims it is, they seem to be over-reliant on such low-tech products as grain and oil and gas production. It just shows how behind they really are. And I checked this out with the biofuels industry and found links to several stories that the US biofuel industry is set to increase its demand of soybeans to well over half the production of the US. This is a good thing, because yet another problem that the video raised was that many people don't like buying US products because they're genetically modified. And while China is installing in 1 year alone more solar power than the entire supply of the US, they're still investing in biofuels there. Something is definitely wrong with that scenario. Once again, I went online to check this GMO thing. It's absolutely true. About 94% of the entire crop of US soybeans is genetically modified. And it's one reason why China has reduced its imports and controlled them. China's administrative rule for the safety of imported agricultural GMOs, originally issued in 2002, revised in 2004 and again in 2017, governs the importation of agricultural GMOs, which includes soybeans, into China. Only 3% is allowed under these rules, so most of the beans coming into China are not genetically modified, and those that are 100% used in animal feed, not human consumption, which is actually what more beans in China are being used for. So it's probably best that more than 70% of the soybeans stay in the USA and might account for some of the health problems they're experiencing there. There is, after all, an obesity pandemic there, while China doesn't have one here. What I found most interesting from all the feedback was the number of people who were telling me that most of the farmers are not blaming China. They're blaming Trump. So I went online to Twitter using a US server, and I checked this out on TikTok as well, and I found that this was observably true. What I also found out was that it's the same farmers being interviewed. Any of the faces that we've seen are the same faces. They're the same people. Isn't it interesting? These farmers are compounding what I believe to be true. We are in a propaganda war here, and the weapon being used is US farmers. The video clips are being sent to Chinese social media, blame China, and appear to make China look bad in the eyes of Chinese social media users. The video clips I see on US platforms appear to make Trump look bad in the eyes of US social media users. But it's the same farmers, sitting in the same tractors, walking through the same farms, or sitting in the same barns. My name for the great American soybean con was perfectly apt, and it doesn't take a lot of research to prove that. They're making the video in parts for different audiences, then carefully selecting which needs to be shown to which audience. Very clever. And people call me a shill. Sometimes it's very hard to tell who's misinformed and who is part of the misinformation. This exercise, which came from a video about US farmers, has proven, to me anyway, to be an enlightening experience. It seems a great many of us are being misinformed. And by the way, although China is now buying from the US, it has still made absolutely no commitment to continue to buy a certain amount. And I'm 100% certain that Besant was lying, not misinforming, lying when he said that China agreed to buy 25 million metric tons a year for 3 years. They have done nothing of the sort. As Donald Trump might say, thank you for your attention to this matter. The best way to remain informed is to check sources, then check their sources, and good luck with that. I look forward to remaining a reliable source for you. Thanks very much for watching again, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.